Commander Sarah Chen's escape pod tumbled through space like a broken toy. The explosion that destroyed her exploration vessel had happened so fast, she barely remembered hitting the emergency launch button. Now she drifted in the vast emptiness between stars, watching her oxygen levels drop with each passing hour. Her ship, the UES Horizon, had been on a routine deep space mission when they encountered what looked like an asteroid field. It turned out to be something much worse. The rocks weren't rocks at all, but some kind of living space creatures that attacked anything that moved through their territory. Her crew of 12 hadn't stood a chance. Sarah checked her instruments again. Oxygen for maybe 6 more hours? Water for 2 days? Food for a week? Not that it mattered. She would be dead long before hunger became a problem. The distress beacon was working, but they were so far from Earth that any rescue ship would take months to reach her position. She was about to accept her fate when something appeared on her sensors. A ship, but unlike anything in the human database. It was smooth and curved, almost organic-looking, with a soft blue glow emanating from its hull. Sarah's heart raced as she realized this was first contact with an alien species. The alien ship approached slowly, carefully. Through her small porthole, Sarah could see lights scanning her pod. She tried to signal them, flashing her exterior lights in what she hoped was a universal pattern of distress. The alien ship responded immediately, matching her pattern and then projecting a gentle beam that seemed to embrace her pod. Sarah felt the pod being drawn toward the alien vessel. A docking tube extended from their ship, connecting to her pod's airlock with surprising precision. Sarah hesitated for a moment. These beings could be hostile, but she was dead anyway if she stayed in the pod. She made her choice and activated the airlock. The atmosphere that rushed in smelled like flowers and rain. Sarah stepped through into a corridor that seemed to pulse with soft, living light. The walls were smooth and warm to the touch, not like metal, but like something grown rather than built. 3 beings waited for her in the corridor. They were tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer between blue and green. Their faces were kind, with large, gentle eyes that reminded Sarah of dolphins. When they spoke, their voices created harmony, as if they sang even when talking normally. "Welcome, traveler from the distant stars," the center being said. Sarah's translation device worked perfectly, somehow picking up not just their words, but the emotional warmth behind them. "I am Keeper Zintar, and these are my bondmates Felaria and Morketh. We sensed your distress and came as quickly as we could." Sarah tried to speak but found her voice cracking with emotion. These beings had saved her life without hesitation, without knowing anything about her or her species. "Thank you," she finally managed. "My name is Sarah Chen, commander in the Earth United Forces. My ship was destroyed by some kind of space creatures." The 3 aliens exchanged looks that seemed to carry entire conversations. "The Devourers," Felaria said sadly. "They have been spreading through this sector for many cycles. We have lost many ships to them, many friends." "Your ship tried to fight them?" Morketh asked gently. "We tried," Sarah said, "but our weapons barely scratched them. They tore through our hull like it was paper." Zintar nodded sadly. "This is the way of it. The Devourers consume everything in their path. Ships, stations, even planets if the swarm grows large enough. We have tried to warn other species, but most do not listen until it is too late." Sarah was led through corridors that seemed more like living tunnels than spacecraft passages. The ship felt alive around them, responding to the crew's presence with subtle changes in lighting and airflow. She was brought to a comfortable room with what looked like furniture that had grown from the floor rather than being placed there. "You must rest," Felaria said kindly. "The escape has been traumatic for your systems. We will care for you until you are strong again." Over the following days, Sarah learned about her rescuers. They called themselves the Kethvari, and their entire culture was built around helping others. They were explorers and healers, traveling the galaxy to offer aid to anyone who needed it. Their ships were living beings, grown rather than built, symbiotic partners that shared their desire to help. The HFY ship, whose name translated roughly as Gentle Current, was on a mission to evacuate refugees from the Devourer advance. Sarah met many of these refugees during her stay. There were crystal beings whose homeworld had been consumed, gas creatures whose nebula had been invaded, and dozens of other species all fleeing the same threat. "How long has this been going on?" Sarah asked Zintar as they stood in the ship's observation area, watching stars drift by. "The Devourers first appeared in our records about 50 of your years ago," Zintar replied. "At first they were just a curiosity, a new form of space life. But they reproduce rapidly and consume everything they touch. Now they control entire systems." "What about fighting back? Surely someone has tried to stop them." Zintar's expression grew sad. "Many have tried, Sarah Chen. The war fleets of a dozen species have thrown themselves at the Devourers. All were consumed. The Devourers learn from each battle, adapting their tactics and growing stronger. Now most species simply flee before them." Sarah felt a cold anger building in her chest. These gentle beings, these refugees, all running from a threat that seemed unstoppable. "There has to be something that can hurt them." "Perhaps," Felaria said, joining their conversation. "But we are not warriors, Sarah Chen. The HFY have never raised weapons in anger. It goes against our very nature." "Then what will you do when there's nowhere left to run?" The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. None of the HFY had an answer. Sarah spent her days learning about the Devourer threat and her evenings listening to stories from the refugees. Each tale was heartbreaking. Entire civilizations reduced to scattered survivors, worlds stripped bare of all life, and always the Devourers moved on to find more to consume. But Sarah also learned about the HFY themselves. They had saved thousands of refugees from dozens of worlds. Their fleet of living ships traveled constantly, always heading toward the next disaster, the next call for help. They never asked for payment or reward. Helping others was simply what they did. "Why?" Sarah asked Zintar one day. "Why do you risk everything to save strangers?" Zintar considered the question carefully. "Because life is precious, Sarah Chen. Every being that dies diminishes us all. Every life saved makes the universe brighter. This is what we believe." Sarah found herself thinking about her own species. Humans had their flaws, certainly. They could be violent and selfish and cruel. But they also had something that might be exactly what this situation needed. When humans cared about something, they fought for it with everything they had. And these gentle beings had shown her more kindness than she had any right to expect. On her 10th day aboard the Gentle Current, everything changed. The ship suddenly lurched, and alarms began singing through the corridors. Sarah found Zintar and the others on what passed for a bridge, their faces grave with worry. "What's happening?" Sarah asked. "Devourers," Morketh said simply. "A small swarm, but closing fast. We cannot outrun them." On the main display, Sarah could see them. They looked like space creatures, but wrong somehow, as if they had been twisted by some dark force. They moved with predatory grace, clearly intelligent and clearly hungry. "Can you fight them?" Sarah asked. "Our ships have some defensive capabilities," Zintar said. "But we carry refugees, not weapons. We will try to protect the innocents aboard, but—" He didn't need to finish. Sarah had seen what the Devourers could do to her own well-armed ship. The battle, if it could be called that, was brief and desperate. The HFY used energy shields and evasive maneuvers, trying to protect their precious cargo of refugees while seeking any chance to escape. But the Devourers were relentless, learning from each defensive measure and adapting. Sarah watched helplessly as creatures that had saved her life prepared to die, protecting others. The same selfless courage that had brought them to rescue her was now leading them toward their doom, and there was nothing she could do to help. That's when she made a decision that would change everything. "I need to get to a communication array," she told Zintar urgently. "The most powerful one you have." Sarah Chen. "This is not the time. Trust me," she said. "Please, these beings saved me. Now let me try to save them." Zintar looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Felaria, take her to the deep space communicator." Sarah ran through the corridors as the ship shuddered under devourer attacks. The communication array was a beautiful thing, a spiral of living crystal that seemed to pulse with its own light. Sarah connected her personal communicator to the system and began broadcasting on the emergency frequency that would reach every human military installation within 50 light years. "This is Commander Sarah Chen, service number 7745 Alpha 9, sending on full emergency priority. Authorization code Omega 77 Charlie. I am aboard an alien vessel under attack by hostile forces. These beings saved my life when my ship was destroyed. They are peaceful refugees trying to escape something called the Devourers." She paused as another impact rocked the ship. In the distance, she could hear the Kethvari singing, their voices joining in what might be their death song. "The beings who rescued me risk everything to save strangers," Sarah continued. "They've pulled thousands of refugees from certain death, asking nothing in return. They saved one human when they could have easily ignored my distress call. Now they're about to die protecting innocent lives." The ship lurched again, and Sarah heard the sound of hull damage. They were running out of time. "I'm sending my location and all tactical data about the Devourer threat. These creatures are spreading through the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. The aliens who saved me say that no military force has been able to stop them, but maybe they haven't met humans yet." Sarah looked around at the beautiful living ship that had become her home and the gentle beings who had treated her like family. "I don't know if anyone will receive this message in time. But if you do, remember this. They saved one human when they had every reason to just keep flying. That has to mean something. That has to be worth something." She closed the channel and sat back, watching the lights of the communication array pulse with the rhythm of a heartbeat. Outside, the Devourers closed in for the kill, and Sarah Chen prepared to die among friends who had taught her what courage really meant. But in the vast darkness of space, her message was already racing toward home, carrying with it the seeds of something the Devourers had never encountered before, human gratitude and everything that came with it. Admiral Marcus Reeves was having his morning coffee when the message arrived. It came through on the highest priority emergency channel, the one reserved for imminent threats to human space. His aide, Lieutenant Commander Torres, burst into his office with the kind of expression that meant someone's day was about to get very complicated. "Sir, we've received a priority Omega message from Commander Chen." Reeves nearly choked on his coffee. "Sarah Chen? Her ship was declared lost with all hands 3 weeks ago." "Yes, sir, but this transmission is confirmed authentic. Her authorization codes check out, and the signal characteristics match her personal communicator." Torres handed him a datapad. "Sir, you need to hear this immediately." Reeves listened to Sarah's message twice, his expression growing darker with each word. When it finished, he sat in silence for a long moment, processing what he'd heard. First contact with an alien species. Hostile creatures consuming entire worlds. And somewhere out there, a group of beings who had risked everything to save one human life. "How old is this transmission?" he asked finally. 47 hours, sir. The signal had to route through 3 relay stations to reach us." Reeves did the math quickly. Even if Sarah's ship was still intact when she sent the message, it would take their fastest vessels at least 6 days to reach her position. The chances of arriving in time were slim to none. But that wasn't really the point, was it? "Get me Admiral Harrison at Fleet Command," Reeves said, standing up. "Priority 1, and I want every ship captain in the sector in the briefing room within 2 hours." "Sir, what are your orders regarding the alien contact protocols?" Reeves looked at the data pad again, thinking about Sarah's words. They saved one human when they had every reason to just keep flying. "The protocols can wait, Commander. Right now, we have people to save." Within 6 hours, the message had reached the highest levels of Earth's government. President Martinez found herself in an emergency session with the Defense Council, trying to process the implications of humanity's first contact with alien life. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said, looking around the table at her advisors. "A peaceful alien species rescued one of our officers. Now they're under attack by some kind of space monsters, and our officer wants us to help them?" "That's essentially correct, Madam President," said Defense Secretary Williams. "Commander Chen's transmission included tactical data about these devourers. According to her information, they've been consuming entire star systems for decades. And no one has been able to stop them?" "Apparently not. Commander Chen indicates that multiple species have tried military solutions. All have failed. President Martinez studied the star charts showing the devourer advance. If Sarah's information was correct, they were moving in a rough line toward human space. At their current rate of expansion, they would reach the outer colonies within 50 years. "So we're not just talking about helping aliens," she said slowly. "We're talking about stopping a threat that will eventually reach us anyway. That's one way to look at it," Admiral Harrison said via secure link from Fleet Command. "But there's another consideration, Madam President. These Kethvari beings saved Commander Chen's life. They didn't have to. According to her report, they've saved thousands of refugees from dozens of species. They're exactly the kind of allies we'd want to have in a hostile galaxy." The President nodded thoughtfully. "What kind of response are we looking at? How many ships would we need to send?" "Unknown, Madam President. We don't have enough data about the Devourer's capabilities. But based on Commander Chen's report of what happened to her ship, we'd need significant firepower." "How significant?" Admiral Harrison was quiet for a moment. "I'd recommend sending the Fifth Fleet, ma'am. Everything we've got in the sector." The room fell silent. The Fifth Fleet represented nearly a quarter of humanity's total military strength. 47 ships, including 2 dreadnoughts and the pride of the human fleet, the UES Retribution. "That's a major commitment," the President said. "Are we sure it's worth the risk?" Secretary Williams leaned forward. "Madam President, if these devourers are as dangerous as Commander Chen suggests, we're going to face them eventually. Better to face them now, with allies, than alone later. And there's the moral consideration," added Ambassador Chen. No relation to Sarah despite the shared name. "These beings saved one of ours. If we abandon them now, what does that say about who we are as a species?" President Martinez thought about her own daughter, currently serving on a deep space exploration vessel. What if it were her out there, rescued by aliens who then died because no one came to help them? "Admiral Harrison, how quickly can you mobilize the Fifth Fleet?" 72 hours, Madam President, but it will take us 8 days to reach Commander Chen's last known position. Then we'd better hope these Kethvari are as tough as they are kind. Give the order, Admiral. And Admiral? Yes, Madam President. When you find these aliens, you tell them that humans don't forget their debts. The mobilization of the Fifth Fleet was the largest military operation in human history. Ships from across human space converged on Staging Point Alpha, a massive space station on the edge of known space. The fleet that assembled was impressive by any measure. 2 dreadnoughts, 8 heavy cruisers, 15 destroyers, and 22 support vessels. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the other ships take their positions in formation. As the fleet's commanding officer, she carried the weight of humanity's first major action beyond their own space. The responsibility was staggering. "Final ship reporting ready, Captain," her XO Commander Park reported. "All vessels are standing by for jump coordinates." "Very good. Signal the fleet. We are proceeding to the rescue of Commander Chen and any survivors of the alien vessel that aided her." "Ma'am," Park said quietly, "what if we're too late? What if Commander Chen's ship was destroyed days ago?" Vasquez looked at the tactical display showing the positions of their ships. Each one represented thousands of crew members, people with families and futures, all risking their lives for aliens they'd never met because one human asked them to. "Then we'll make sure the creatures that killed them understand the consequences," she said simply. The jump to hyperspace was flawlessly executed, 47 ships vanishing from normal space in perfect synchronization. They would travel for 6 days through the higher dimensions, emerging in a region of space no human had ever seen before. During the journey, every crew member studied the tactical data Sarah had provided about the Devourers. The creatures appeared to be some kind of evolved space life, possibly originally peaceful before something had twisted them into killing machines. They were highly adaptive, able to learn from each encounter and modify their tactics accordingly. "They've never faced humans before," Admiral Thompson observed during a fleet briefing. "That gives us one advantage. They won't know what to expect from our weapons or tactics." "What about allies?" asked Captain Singh from the heavy cruiser Yorktown. "These Kethvari might have other ships in the area." "Commander Chen's data suggests their ships are designed for rescue operations, not combat," Vasquez replied. "We should assume we'll be fighting alone." On the 4th day of their journey, long-range sensors detected something that changed everything. A massive energy signature, unlike anything in their databases, was moving through space at incredible speed. As they watched, it consumed 3 star systems in rapid succession. "My God," whispered the sensor operator. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever that thing is, it's bigger than anything we've ever seen." Vasquez studied the sensor data with growing alarm. This wasn't just a swarm of space creatures. This was something else entirely. Something that made the reports of individual Devourer attacks seem small by comparison. "Update our tactical assessment," she ordered, "and send a message back to Fleet Command. They need to know what we're heading into." The response from Earth came 18 hours later, just 2 days before they were scheduled to arrive at Sarah's position. It was brief and to the point. "Proceed with mission. Reinforcements being prepared." "Reinforcements?" Park asked when Vasquez shared the message. "What kind of reinforcements?" "The kind that tells me Earth is taking this threat very seriously," Vasquez replied. On their final day in hyperspace, the fleet received one more piece of intelligence that changed their entire mission profile. Long-range communications had detected a weak signal from the area of space where Sarah had last been heard from. It wasn't human, but it matched the transmission characteristics the Kethvari had used to communicate with Sarah. "They're still alive," Torres reported from the communications station. "The signal is weak and intermittent, but it's definitely there." Vasquez felt a surge of hope mixed with determination. After 8 days of travel and weeks of preparation, they might actually arrive in time to make a difference. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Combat stations, we are 30 minutes from emergence." Across the fleet, 47 ships prepared for battle. Weapons were charged, shields were raised, and 20,000 human sailors prepared to face an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. They were traveling to save aliens they had never met, based on the word of one woman who believed that saving lives was worth any risk. As the countdown to emergence reached 0, Captain Vasquez thought about the message that had started it all. Sarah Chen, stranded in space, rescued by beings who had every reason to leave her to die. Those same beings were now facing extinction, and humanity was about to announce its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. "All ships, prepare for emergence," she announced to the fleet. "Remember, we're not just here to fight. We're here to show the galaxy what humans do when someone saves one of our own. The fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 47 warships appearing in normal space like an avenging angel. Immediately, their sensors began detecting activity in the area. Ships in distress, energy signatures consistent with the Devourers, and somewhere in the chaos, the faint signal that meant Sarah Chen and her alien rescuers were still alive. "Tactical report," Vasquez ordered. "Multiple contacts, Captain. Looks like a running battle in progress. I'm reading at least 30 Devourer entities, and they're surrounding a cluster of what appear to be refugee ships. Distance to the battle? 4 million kilometers and closing." Vasquez looked at the tactical display, seeing the unfolding drama. Somewhere in that chaotic battle, beings who had saved a human life were fighting for their survival. They had asked for nothing in return for their kindness, but humanity had come anyway. "Signal all ships," she said, her voice carrying across the fleet. "Maximum acceleration. Today we teach the galaxy what human gratitude looks like." Behind them, the vast fleet of humanity accelerated toward its first interstellar war, driven by the simple belief that kindness deserved protection and that no good deed should go unpunished for long. The Devourers were about to learn that humans had very strong opinions about people who threatened their friends. And in the vast darkness of space, 47 ships carrying the hopes of humanity raced toward a battle that would determine whether kindness or hunger would rule the stars. The battle that greeted the Fifth Fleet was unlike anything in human military doctrine. It wasn't warfare as humans understood it, with clear formations and strategic objectives. This was more like watching a pack of wolves tear apart sheep, if wolves could fly through vacuum and sheep could sing their death songs across space. "Status report," Captain Vasquez demanded as the Retribution sensors swept the battlefield. 37 Devourer entities confirmed, reported Lieutenant Torres. They're surrounding a formation of 11 alien vessels. The aliens are trying to protect what looks like a civilian convoy, but they're taking heavy losses. Through the main viewer, Vasquez could see the Kethvari ships. They were beautiful even in their death throes, flowing organic curves that pulsed with dying light as the Devourers tore into them. The alien vessels were clearly not designed for combat, trying desperately to shield the smaller refugee ships behind them, while their attackers circled like predators. "Where's Commander Chen's signal coming from?" Vasquez asked. "The largest of the alien ships, Captain. The signal is weak, but steady." Vasquez nodded grimly. Sarah was still alive, still aboard the ship that had saved her. Now it was humanity's turn to do the saving. "Fleet-wide channel," she ordered. "All ships. This is Captain Vasquez. We have multiple civilian vessels under attack by hostile forces. Our mission is simple: protect the innocents and eliminate the threat. The aliens you see dying out there saved one of our own when they could have ignored her distress call. Today we return the favor." She paused, watching as another Kethvari ship lost its glow and began drifting lifelessly. "These Devourers think they're the apex predators of the galaxy. They've consumed entire worlds because no one could stop them. They've never fought humans before. Let's give them an education they'll never forget. All ships weapons free. Show them what human warfare looks like." The response was immediate and devastating. 47 human warships opened fire simultaneously, their combined firepower lighting up space like a newborn star. Particle beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic rounds streaked across the battlefield at a significant fraction of light speed. The Devourers had been focused entirely on their prey, confident in their superiority after decades of easy victories. The sudden appearance of an entirely new type of warship, armed with weapons they had never encountered, caught them completely off guard. 3 Devourer entities simply ceased to exist, vaporized by concentrated fire from the Dreadnought's main batteries. 2 more were torn apart by the coordinated strike from a squadron of destroyers. In the first 10 seconds of human involvement, The Devourers lost nearly 20% of their force. But they adapted quickly. That was what made them so dangerous. The surviving Devourers immediately began evasive maneuvers, their organic forms shifting and changing to present smaller targets. Some split into multiple smaller creatures, others grew armor-like extensions. They had learned from the initial strike and were already modifying their tactics. "They're adapting faster than our projections indicated," reported Commander Park from his position at the tactical station. "The creatures are changing their behavior patterns in real time." "Then we change ours too," Vasquez replied. "Signal Squadron Charlie. Execute Pattern 7. Squadron Delta, provide covering fire for the alien convoy. Squadron Alpha, with me. We're going straight at them." The human fleet split into 3 groups, each executing different tactical maneuvers simultaneously. It was the kind of complex, coordinated assault that required years of training and perfect communication between ships. The Devourers, for all their adaptability, had never faced opponents who could change their entire strategy in the middle of a battle. Squadron Charlie began a spiraling attack pattern, their destroyers weaving between the larger alien ships while laying down suppressing fire. Squadron Delta formed a protective screen around the Kethvari convoy, their shields absorbing Devourer attacks while returning fire. And Squadron Alpha, led by both dreadnoughts, drove straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The Retribution's massive guns spoke again, and another Devourer disappeared in a flash of vaporized matter. But this time, the creatures were ready. One of them had grown what looked like mirror-like surfaces on its hull, reflecting the particle beam back at the human ship. The beam struck the Retribution's shields, causing them to flare and drain power. "Clever," Vasquez admitted. "Tactical. Update our targeting priorities. Focus on the ones that haven't adapted yet, and use kinetic rounds on the ones with reflective armor." "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessels," Torres reported. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was unmistakably familiar. "Human fleet, this is Commander Sarah Chen aboard the Kethvari vessel Gentle Current. I can't believe you actually came." Vasquez smiled grimly. "Commander Chen, this is Captain Elena Vasquez commanding the 5th Fleet. We received your message. Sorry we're late." "Better late than never, Captain. These beings saved my life and the lives of thousands of refugees. They deserve better than to die fighting creatures they can't hurt." "They won't die today, Commander, that's a promise. What's your tactical situation?" "The Kethvari ships have defensive capabilities but almost no offensive weapons. They've been trying to protect the refugee ships while looking for a chance to escape, but the Devourers have them surrounded." "Understood. Can your ships coordinate with our fleet?" There was a brief pause, then a new voice came on the channel. It was melodic, almost musical, clearly not human. "Human vessels, this is Keeper Zintar of the Gentle Current. We are honored by your arrival, though we do not understand why you would risk your lives for beings you have never met." "Because you saved one of ours when you didn't have to," Vasquez replied simply. "That makes you friends of humanity, and humans don't abandon their friends. Your weapons are far more effective against the Devourers than ours," Zintar said. "We will coordinate our defensive screens with your attack patterns." The combined human-Kethvari assault was beautiful and terrible to watch. The organic alien ships flowed around the human warships like water, their shields extending to protect damaged human vessels, while the human guns provided the firepower the aliens lacked. It was a perfect symbiosis of defense and offense. But the Devourers were learning too. They began targeting the Kethvari ships specifically, recognizing that the human fleet was more vulnerable when separated from their alien allies. Several refugee ships took critical damage, and Vasquez could hear the desperation in Zintar's voice as he coordinated rescue efforts. "Squadron Delta, priority protection for the damaged refugee vessels," Vasquez ordered. "All other ships, continue the assault. We need to end this quickly." The battle raged for 47 minutes. In that time, humanity announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. The human fleet demonstrated tactical flexibility, devastating firepower, and a willingness to sacrifice themselves for allies they had just met. Every ship captain pushed their vessels to the limit, driven by the knowledge that peaceful beings were dying while they fought. The turning point came when the Devourers attempted to retreat. Having lost 2/3 of their number, the surviving creatures began to withdraw, probably planning to regroup and attack with greater numbers. But Captain Singh of the heavy cruiser Yorktown had other ideas. "All ships, this is Singh. They're trying to escape. If they get away, they'll come back with reinforcements. We end this here and now." Without waiting for orders, Singh pushed his ship beyond safe limits, intercepting the fleeing Devourers. The Yorktown's weapons blazed as Singh personally engaged 4 creatures simultaneously. His ship took massive damage, but he held them long enough for the rest of the fleet to arrive. The final Devourer died under concentrated fire from 12 human ships, its organic form breaking apart and dissolving into space. The battlefield fell silent except for the soft singing of the Kethvari, their harmonious voices offering memorial songs for the fallen. "All ships, report status," Vasquez ordered. The casualty reports could have been worse. The Yorktown was severely damaged but salvageable. 3 destroyers had taken heavy damage, and 2 would need extensive repairs. Most importantly, no human ships had been lost. "What about our allies?" Vasquez asked. 2 Kethvari vessels suffered critical damage, but their crews are alive, Torres reported. "The refugee ships are intact. Looks like we got here just in time." Vasquez opened a channel to the alien fleet. "Keeper Zintar, this is Captain Vasquez. Are you in need of assistance? Your arrival has saved not just our lives, but the lives of thousands of refugees from across the galaxy," Zintar replied, his musical voice heavy with emotion. "We owe you a debt that cannot be repaid." "You already repaid it," Vasquez said firmly. "You saved Commander Chen when you could have ignored her distress call. That kindness just saved your entire convoy." "Captain," Sarah's voice came back on the channel. "Request permission to transfer back to the human fleet." "Denied, Commander. You're our liaison to our new allies. Besides, it sounds like you found some good people to serve with." There was a pause, then Sarah's voice, thick with emotion. "Thank you, Captain, for everything." Over the following hours, the human fleet worked alongside the Kethvari to repair damaged ships and care for wounded refugees. Medical teams from both species shared knowledge and techniques, while engineers marveled at the differences between mechanical and organic technology. But the most important conversations happened between Captain Vasquez and Keeper Zintar as they planned for the future. The Devourers might be defeated here, but this was just one small group. The main swarm was still out there, still consuming worlds. "Your species fights in ways we never imagined," Zintar said as they stood in the observation deck of the Gentle Current, watching human and alien ships working side by side. "You coordinate your vessels like a single organism, yet each ship acts independently when needed." "We've had a lot of practice fighting each other," Vasquez admitted. "It took us a while to figure out that cooperation was more effective than conflict. The Devourers will not expect tactics like these. They have never faced opponents who adapt as quickly as they do. Then maybe it's time someone taught them what real adaptation looks like," Vasquez said. "How many refugee fleets are out there? How many species are running from these creatures? Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands. The Devourer advance has displaced entire sectors." Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. "What if they didn't have to run anymore? What if they could fight back? You would teach them human warfare tactics?" "Why not? You saved one human and we came back for all of you. Imagine what would happen if we saved one ship from every species the Devourers have displaced." Zintar was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. You would create an alliance of refugees and warriors? I'd create a galaxy where kindness doesn't get you killed, Vasquez replied firmly. Where beings like your people can focus on saving lives instead of running for their own. The plan that emerged from those conversations would reshape the entire galactic political structure. Humanity would provide military training and tactics to refugee species, while the Kethavari would coordinate relief efforts and diplomatic contacts. Each species would contribute what they could: technology, resources, knowledge, or simply the will to fight back. 3 months later, the Devourer Advance encountered something they had never seen before: organized resistance. Ship after ship of refugees who had learned human warfare tactics, coordinated by Kethavari strategists and armed with weapons designed by a dozen different species. The creatures that had consumed worlds for decades suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that adapted faster than they did, hit harder than they expected, and never stopped coming. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers began to retreat. And at the center of it all was a simple principle that Sarah Chen had learned aboard an alien ship. When someone saves your life, you find a way to save theirs in return. That principle had convinced humanity to travel across the galaxy to help strangers. Now it was spreading to every species that had ever been helped by the Kethavari. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known. Kindness shared was kindness multiplied, and those who protected the innocent would always find others willing to stand beside them. The Devourers had ruled through fear and hunger, but they were no match for an alliance built on gratitude and mutual protection. One human saved by aliens had become a message that brought humanity to war. That same message was now being carried by thousands of species, creating an alliance that the Devourers could never consume. In trying to kill those who showed kindness to strangers, they had created something far more dangerous than any weapon: a galaxy united in the belief that good deeds should be protected, and that no act of kindness should ever go unanswered. The war against the Devourers would continue for years, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The galaxy had learned to fight back. And it had learned from the best teachers possible, humans who believed that saving one life was worth risking everything, and aliens who had proven that the universe was full of beings worth saving.